Welcome to the 3 Championship Drive podcast on YouTube, hosted by me, Lance Caporossi. Follow me on X at Lance Caporossi, the same way you see it spelled on the screen. Check out 3 Championship Drive on Instagram, and then check us out on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button over there. And do me a favor, tell a Pistons fan. I hate when I add something new to an intro and I mess it up because I just did right there. But anyways, jam-packed podcast for you guys. But before we get into this, me and Zach were talking earlier in some text messages. He thinks he can beat me one-on-one in basketball. Now, I know people watching this and listening to this have never seen me play, but I think it's pretty crazy that someone would say that to me.
Okay, so even though you were a lot older than me when going to high school, you never played, dude. I was on a state championship team,
Yeah,
dog.
this is true.
I played at the Breslin 3 times, bro. Went there 3 times, bro. If I get in shape, you're done, man. You're toasted, bro. I'm
Yeah,
telling you right
but
now.
I've been playing. I can shoot
I
either
can
hand.
guard. I'm
Yeah,
6'5", dude.
yeah, that's fine. I can
I'm
score over
quick.
Betcher. He was 6'9".
All right, bro. What are you, Caitlin Clark? Jesus, no, you're done.
I
Man. Don't
wish. I
even.
do wish. I wish I
Same,
was that good. I
same.
wish I was that
Honestly,
good. One day we'll play, though. I
that's
promise.
fine.
We'll
I'll
play.
start running.
I'm actually afraid of this. So the other day, real quick, I know we normally just jump right into the topics of the podcast, but I was playing basketball the other day, and this dude was just before we get playing. You know what I hate when people do this? They want to talk about past injuries. He's like, "Yeah, you see that spot on the court right over there? That's where my Achilles ruptured." I'm like, "Why are you putting all of that in our heads right now?" Nobody wants to think about that before we get going to play some ball, right? Like,
Man,
I hate that. That's just bad juju on anybody that's about to play basketball. But let's get into the prospects. This first name, he's not going to be a lottery pick, even though I do love his skill set offensively and defensively. And this is Kyle Filipowski, the 7-footer. So before we get into fit and everything, like we normally do, great basketball name though, Kyle Filipowski. Like it's a great basketball name. You know he's going to be good just based on the name. This is what I like about his game. Keeps the ball moving. He plays hard on defense, can protect the rim. He has active hands. Fantastic in the post, can roll to the rim and finish. He has guard-like abilities when it comes to passing, and I mean, obviously, he's not going to put the ball on the ground at his size, but he actually can do that, which is crazy. Not like Victor Wembanyama, but he can put the ball on the ground and he can make a little bit of moves. That's what I like about him. Solid three-point shooter in college, 34% on 3 attempts per game. He struggles at the rim against length. And even though he does average a good number of assists, he forces a lot of passes and commits some really silly turnovers. But I think that stuff will be cleaned up when he gets to the NBA. But what do you like and dislike about Kyle Filipowski?
well, starting at the 5 for Monsters University is Kyle Filipowski, Mike Wazowski's cousin, at 7 foot. He is a
Good
monster,
one.
dude. He is a monster, and I loved watching him play at Duke. He was always the notes that I took on Filipowski was obviously he's athletic. He's 7 foot. I think he's 248, so he's already NBA size, and he
Yeah.
already has NBA speed. He kind of senses the game the best way that I've seen out of a big, other than maybe Zach Edey in the tournament as they progressed through it. I thought his IQ was better than Zach Edey. He was always at the right spot on the floor. If you watch a lot of his highlights, as you see him cut, he's very good at stopping at a strategic spot to be able to catch the ball and be in the position to score. He's always giving himself an opportunity to put the ball in the basket, and he's a great finisher. I put his finishing as part of his top tier of his ability at 7 foot to kind of get around people and maneuver people. He's not going to body you by any means because that's not his skill set. But with his shooting and being able to kind of expand the floor a little bit and get bigs out from underneath the rim, I think he's a great fit for a lot of NBA teams right now. His performance in the NCAA the tournament as a sophomore, playing the #1 Houston team in that tournament and upsetting them by, I think they won by 2 points. That was actually very impressive for a young man to go out and play a team like Houston so early in the tournament and to knock a 1 seed off. It's impressive as much as people probably don't think it. So I really like watching him play. He's very smart. He knows what his talent is, and he doesn't go outside that box. He stays where he
Exactly.
knows that he is good at the game. And as a young player, that's already very impressive to see.
Yeah, the more we talk about him and the more I watched of him, I was really starting to fall in love with him where I you're not going to draft him in the top 5. There's some guys with some real potential at the top 5 like an Alex Sarr. I mean, Donovan Cleon, his defense is just tremendous where even though he doesn't give you the same thing offensively, you're still going to draft him because like you're looking at a guy that may potentially compete for defensive player of the years and make some all defensive teams. That's not Kyle Filipowski's game, but he can protect the rim. He can play drop. But the more I talk about him, if the Pistons were to trade up into the draft and somehow get like the 15th or 16th or 17th pick somewhere in that area, I would be totally fine with them taking Kyle Filipowski in that role because I just think as a guy that can space the floor, as a guy that can be a playmaker out of that 5 spot. There's just so many great things you could do with him in any type of offensive system, and the Pistons don't have that right now. Like, I wish they still had kept Kelly Olynyk. I loved what he brought to the game, and you kind of see the same thing with Kyle Filipowski, where he can do some of those same things: spread the floor, put the ball on the ground, do some dribble handoffs, set a screen, and roll to the rim. Like it's simple stuff, but he can do it. And when I don't really know so much what Kelly Olynyk was bringing to the team. Like I know the record wasn't very great, but having a center with that skill set compared with Cade and the way he's growing into his role, it could just be tremendous. And again, not a top 5 pick, but just outside of the lottery, I would love for the Pistons to trade up and grab this guy, Kyle Filipowski out of Duke. How do you like his fit though with the Pistons?
I think his fit is tremendous. I really do like him, and I know that we've been talking about. I like to do the comparisons. I also added best team fit. I know that we try to focus on Pistons to see if these guys are going to be hit or misses, but also if they're not if they're a miss with the Pistons, where do they hit? And that's kind of where I want to talk about these 3 guys. But with Kyle Filipowski, with my NBA comparison is the guy that you love, the big man that you love. Can you guess? Yes or no? I plays for the Rockets, bro. Like I think he's a Sengun. I think he's a Sengun. I think the way that he can move, maybe his shooting is not as persistent as Sengun is, but as how young he is coming into the league, I think that he has that type of ability if you put him in the right scenario. And when I put him with my best team fit, I put Detroit in it. Detroit's one of them. Detroit is, I think they could trade back and they could grab this guy. I think this guy could be a better upgrade than Isaiah Stewart. I really think he can, the way he stretches the floor. I think he could play really well with Duren at the 4, with Duren at the 5. I think the way that he spaces things out, adds size to the floor and his length, I think he could do really well because he is quicker than Stu. I think he can guard. I know perimeter Beef Stew can guard pretty well on perimeter, but I think with his size and his length, I think he's a better option for them. And I also put a fit would be Golden State Warriors for him. Ooh. I think he would do really well there with Jonathan Kuminga if Draymond can maybe not get a technical every other game. And with Curry and Clay, if they decide to keep that team together, which is going to be, it's going to be rough because I think they're to the point where they might start deteriorating that championship squad. But I think he would be a really good fit with the pieces that they have in Golden State right now.
I'm not in love with the comparison just because Sengun kind of reminds me of Baby Jokic. But my comparison, as I was listening to you talk, and after, again, just going back to watching him play, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Mehmet Okur, another Pistons legend. A little bit. 6'11", 7 foot, European style game, but can also block some shots, and he can bang with some guys down low, grab you a couple of boards. I like that Okur comp, even because it is mine. Like, I mean, when I make the comparisons, I gotta love him.
Okay.
I do like the fit with Golden State though, because I don't know, they've been kind of missing something from that 5 spot. I know that Draymond still plays that, but like even though they won with Kevon Looney at that 5, but like when they had Andrew Bogut setting those hard screens, they've never really played with a 5 like Kyle Filipowski, and I think that is something that could get real interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Utah though, just because Will Hardy is awesome with front court players, even though they have a multitude of them already right now in Utah. And then, man, I'm trying to think of another team just because you gave me a couple already. Some other teams that would be great. You know what?
His athleticism, I think he fits as the 5 perfectly for Golden State.
Yeah.
I think he gives them everything that they need right now, maybe to even be back to being a contending type team. Because Draymond is playing well. As long as he's staying in the game, he is playing well. Curry is he's off, but then again, what is he, 34 years old? We're getting to the end of the Curry area, but he's still a chef, man. He still does what he has to do. Clay's been a little off. The season's been really weird, but they're in the play-in tournament, and you can't count Golden State out. You really can't, because Curry can drop 50 in 5 games of a 7-game series.
Okay, I thought of another team.
Oh,
Boston. I always think of Boston. Boston's just the perfect place for guys like this because they already doing it with Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis.
Okay.
And Al Horford's getting older, and him and Kyle Filipowski, they do kind of share a similar skill set, I think. Okay. Let's move on to our next guy. I'm going to butcher his first name because as we were talking, I kept thinking, okay, I got to say his first name. And I know I'm going to say it wrong. So I'm just going to go with his last name, and I'm going to save myself. Buzelis, the 6'10". I don't know if he's a wing or a forward or a 3 or a 4. I don't know what he is, but his skill set is pretty intriguing. So he's good, solid without the ball. He's good in transition. Like, he looks real explosive when he has space. He's a solid team defender, shows a soft touch on his in-between game when it's either hook shots, floaters, like, you know, even the mid-range game when he like goes to that spin and then hits him with a fadeaway. Versatile offensive player because he has a great feel for the game, and you can see him fitting with a lot of different teams just because of that feel. Like, he's probably not going to lead your team in assist, but he'd be a great connector. He's not, and you could probably pair him with like a Cade or like a prime James Harden or a Luka Doncic, one of those guys where they do most of the ball handling, but they need that secondary guy. You could get in with that. Struggles as a three-point shooter, only hitting 26% of his threes this year. Needs to tighten up the ball handling and finishing at the rim when there's congestion at the rim. He's kind of weak in that aspect. And like, it doesn't look like he really enjoys contact, but he is 6'10", so he should be able to go right up over guys. But what do you like about Buzelis?
Man, we just keep hitting these G League guys, man. These G League guys.
Yeah, you hate the G League guys.
It's not that I hate. Stop saying hate. Hate is a bad word, brother. Like, I just don't understand the G League with its comparison to moving these guys from the G League to the NBA. It's really hard to see their elevation of how good their skill set actually is. Not that the G League is bad by any means, but it's a lot of guys that are really grinding it out, trying to see if that they can compete with these guys, but it's not really all NBA talent. But with Buzelis, 6'10", 19 years old, slasher. That's what he is. That's his 2K card. He is a slasher. He is a very, very, very aggressive player. He isn't big enough with weight to back you down, but like you said, he's got that Dirk Nowitzki fadeaway, dude, and he does hit it. He does. He'll step back on 1 foot, and he is tall enough at 6'10" and being lanky as he is to be able to create space with that shot. Not like Dirk, because Dirk was the guy, but with that type of asset, that's what he has. You already hit it, shooting 26.9% from 3. That's really rough. That's not a Pistons fit. It's not. We don't have if that's a Pistons fit. Now essentially we got 2 Asar Thompson slashing to the board left and right, left and right, left and right. That's what we would have if we were to draft someone like Buzelis. I think he's a good player. But shooting 26.9% from 3 and then only 68% at the line with as much that he does go to the rim, that would worry me to be a pickup in the NBA.
You know, man, as I'm listening to you talk, you know who he reminds me of? You're not even going to know who this guy is.
It's probably some guy from 2005, dude.
It is. Keith Van Horn.
Nope, that's all you.
Yeah, see, you don't even know who
I'll look him up.
About.
I can look him up real quick.
He wore the high socks, played for New Jersey.
Okay.
He was like the number 2 overall pick out of Utah, I believe.
Okay.
Was a 20-point scorer in the NBA, though, for like, I think 1 or 2 years. Keith Van Horn was the man. And the reason I think of Keith Van Horn as his comp is Buzelis is not very good at he's good at moving without the ball, but when in terms of 3-point shooting, he's just more of a standstill.
Yep.
That's it. Like you don't see a lot of movement from him.
It's like an
perimeter.
Asar Thompson. It is like with him taking threes. Like it's a lot of corners. It's not making and creating space. It's him. It's him having someone else that drives and creates that space for him to take that shot.
So you're out on his fit with the Detroit Pistons just because
he's not a team fit. I think we're already set in that category. I think we already have what we kind of need there. I think I've preached it from 1 to 2 to 3 on these podcasts that if we're going to be picking, we need to get someone that can defend on the low block. That's someone that can be able to be versatile as a 5 and a 4, or we need to go with straight scoring. And I don't think he's really in that category. Like I did my NBA comparison. It was tough for me to think of, but I came up with Aaron Gordon, a young Aaron Gordon into the league because he wasn't much of a shooter right away. He was more of a slasher on the block player. He got rebounds, but he wasn't too, I would say, much of your Swiss Army knife that you like to kind of compare these guys with having lots of capabilities. I don't see him being super successful in the league just with his play style. I mean, he could obviously prove me wrong. Like, man, that guy on that podcast was totally wrong. But I just don't see him being super successful. And with my best team fit, I put him with the Magic. I think he'd be okay on Orlando with Franz Wagner, like because Franz can create space. He can make shots. Paulo Banchero, he's very good at getting to the rim and getting other people looks. Paulo takes on a lot of double teams, and I think with those double teams, if he were to be on the same side as Paulo's trying to work, I think him slashing to the hoop consistently, it would be a really good fit in Orlando.
Yeah, see, I'm thinking Denver would be kind of he won't obviously end up in Denver because they're not drafted in the lottery, but you got me thinking of like Aaron Gordon, the way he cuts without the basket. You play next to Nikola Jokic where, man, that would
Jokic would feast.
Yeah,
Jokic
definitely.
would feast with a guy like this, yes.
Oh, definitely. It would be a lot of fun. Yeah, but I'm out on Buzelis as well. I just there's a lot of potential there. There definitely is, but like what he brings to the table right now, if the Pistons didn't have so many holes, I'd be like, yeah, dude, I would take a shot with them. But they have so many holes to fill on this roster, and I'd rather them go with someone that is going to be ready and available to contribute day one. And I don't think you're going to get that with Buzelis on the Pistons. Maybe on another team, but not with the Pistons right now. So the last name, I actually love this guy's game. I really do, and you can't go wrong with a guard from Kentucky. No, not Reed Shepherd. We did him earlier. Rob Dillingham. He's listed at 6'3" with a 6'5" wingspan. Decent size to be able to play off the ball next to a jumbo point guard like Cade Cunningham. He has good self-creation, good scoring out of the pick and roll. He only did shoot 39% from the field, but he shot 50.6% from the field out of the pick and roll. Solid three-point shooter. Shot 37.9, 42.9 from 3-point out of the pick and roll, and 47.7% on catch and shoot. Decent playmaker where you see might be like a little bit higher of a ceiling in that part of his game. Average, I think 3.9 assists. I think he had a 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio. Very creative with the ball in his hands. Like when I watch him and he has that burst with that quick step, it's like I'm watching Jaden Ivey's first step, that burst that he has, but there's just more skill to Rob Dillingham's game right now than Jaden Ivey. That burst, though, is very similar to each other. And even if he's not a starter, I could see him being like a 6-man in the league. He does lack consistency, but he can heat up real quickly. Defensively, doesn't have great size, doesn't put a lot of pressure on the defense, puts a lot of pressure on his teammates, has a hard time getting over screens, and not great at recovering. He actually does surprisingly struggle at finishing at the rim, but I think that has more to do with like his lack of strength and his verticality. But he made 52.6% at the rim, 58% in the half court, and 45.7 in transition. In decision making, even though I said he has a high ceiling as a playmaker, it can be a little erratic at times with what he does with the ball. Like he's very much has that shoot first mentality versus creating something. But when he wants to play make, it can be a little erratic. But what do you like about Rob Dillingham?
So I'm gonna lead right off to my NBA comparison
Mhm.
because I saw it almost instantly, and that's Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that I saw. The way he runs the point, he's aggressive, consistently aggressive. And that's what Maxey does for Philadelphia. And that's what brings them so much success with how they play. 6'3 freshman, another Kentucky freshman. It's like that's all they do is they just bring in a freshman, they send him to the NBA. Well, they aren't going to do it anymore because Calipari's in Arkansas. So he's
Yep.
gone. But his lateral quickness is elite. His side to side is great. Ball handling is great. He doesn't not all the time it's super tight to his body, but he does handle it well in the positions that he's in. Very, very aggressive in transition. He is the cherry picker for your team. He will get out and go. He's the guy that could be like, I'm not saying this is my NBA fit, but the guy that goes to Denver and Jokic gets a board and just baseball passes that thing 40 feet down the court, snags it, and he finishes at the rim with a lot of aggression. As a point guard, the thing that I saw the most is he's always one step ahead of whoever's defending him. He always kind of seems like he knows where he wants to go with it and he commits to it. He doesn't, you can tell he's not second guessing what he wants to do with the basketball. He knows where he wants to go and how he wants to play. So it's kind of the same with Filipowski of how he said he knows his role and he plays it pretty well. The shooting percentages I think can come with him as being a freshman and entering the league really young. I don't know if he's a lottery pick. He does kind of remind me of kind of like where we were trying to go with Jaden Ivey. So I don't know if that's something that the Pistons want to burn on a lottery pick for Dillingham coming out of this draft. Not really a fit to me, but I think he will be good for some team out there. I do have my best team fit, but this only is required with maybe this team to make some type of move with trading guards. But I think he would work well with on the Hawks with either Trae Young or Murray. I think he would be a great counterpartner to one of those guys because there's always been a lot of trade rumors for next year that Trae Young's going to be out of Atlanta. And whether they either deal Trae Young or Murray, I think that could be a really good replacement spot.
Ooh, that would be interesting in Atlanta. I don't know if I quite see the fit like you do, but I have another team, Charlotte, though, because they
Yeah.
were kind of doing it with LaMelo with Terry Rozier,
Yep.
smaller guard next to him. I do want to clean something up, though. I got his field goal percentage wrong. He actually shot 47.5% and 44% from three. He only started one game for Kentucky, though, which might put him in. I don't know how I'm going to say this. Like, you might put him in like a good category because Devin Booker came off the bench for Kentucky and he has been phenomenal for the Phoenix Suns. So, maybe coming off the bench for Kentucky might be a good idea for some guards. I actually do like his fit with Cade Cunningham offensively. Defensively, I wish the Pistons had a five-man that could protect the rim. I would feel much more comfortable with them going with Rob Dillingham. But I do like his fit with Cade. They can be a real dynamic offensive backcourt together. Like you have the playmaking, the size, the guy that can control the pace in Cade Cunningham. Then you have another guy that can play off the ball. He can create his own shot. He can get others involved in Rob Dillingham. But again, defensively, that would be a nightmare, for these two to play together. Well, unless you have a five-man that can actually protect the rim, but Pistons don't have that right now. So I'm not out on Rob Dillingham for the Pistons because I feel like it would be a mistake to pass on a Kentucky guard. And I don't want to see Rob Dillingham on another team just playing like an all-star like you see with Tyrese Maxey. That would just destroy me if I saw that.
Now,
Because it would.
question for you, okay?
What's
So
up?
say you got a phone call tonight saying that you are now the head scouting report leader, whatever, for the Detroit Pistons, okay? So would you take in more of an idea of their performance in the NCAA tournament compared to their regular season statistics? Like, would you look at that as being maybe a factor of drafting somebody?
I mean, it would definitely be a factor, but it wouldn't be like that wouldn't be the reason I look. Because I feel like you can be fooled by guys in the NCAA tournament that played well, like
Okay.
Patrick O'Brien. He comes to mind. He was I think he played for Bradley, and he had a good little NCAA run. And then I think he was drafted in the lottery or right outside the lottery, but he wasn't a very good player in the NBA. So I
Yeah.
think
The
guys,
reason the
yeah,
reason I say that is because they were bounced round one to Oakland,
yeah,
and his
true.
deep, and it's not, and it's just it concerns me because Oakland was not heavy guard play. They had one guy that could burn you from deep, and I mean he played well, but he didn't really produce in 28 minutes of that Oakland game, and I think that's where you want to see someone thrive before maybe entering your name into the draft. So I was just curious if maybe that's something that could be coming to effect of him playing 28 minutes and only scoring 10 points and shooting 20% from the field. It wasn't, I knew his name before the tournament. So I kind of had an idea of who he was and I was excited to play him, but it wasn't really something that was much of a show.
Yeah, I want to say Oakland though. They did something. I don't even think Reed Shepherd had a good game against Oakland.
No.
I think both guards, Dillingham and Shepherd, struggled against Oakland. I think it was the way they were playing defense, and Coach Cal really didn't put them in a position to succeed against Oakland.
Okay.
I think they didn't take the opponent very seriously, but
Okay.
guys have bad games. But overall, I think you can look at the regular season and say, yeah, this guy's going to be pretty solid in the NBA.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we get done with the prospects. I want to talk about the 2020. I want to talk about the Pistons. They just finished their NBA. They just finished the regular season. They lost to the San Antonio Spurs. That was, I think, the 20th team that swept them this year. Did we pull up? I know we have the stats, but did we actually add all that up? Because I have 0-56 against all those teams. And the teams are Atlanta, Boston, Cleveland, Denver, Golden State, Houston, Indiana, Los Angeles Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers,
You
Memphis,
should
Miami,
just say
Milwaukee,
who it
Minnesota,
isn't. Just
New
say who it
Orleans, New
isn't.
York, Orlando, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Utah, San Antonio.
Just say who it isn't. Just say
I
who we
couldn't
did
think of
beat.
who it wasn't there. I couldn't think. There's just
Because
too
they're
many
all
names.
there.
I guess
Oh,
Charlotte's not there. Yeah, every team. So
the
they,
Wizards. I wanted them to have a better record than Washington. I
That
wanted
wasn't
it
gonna
so
happen.
bad, just for karma, but it didn't work out.
So the Pistons have clinched the worst record in their team history. And they've lost 131 games in 2 years and only lost 126 from 2003 to 2008. It's just incredible. It's just crazy how bad this team is. So, is this the worst team in Detroit professional sports history?
I don't know. 0-16 Lions are pretty rough, man. But the Pistons, man, you got 82 games and you only capped out 13 of them, 14 of them. That's pretty rough. But to say the worst, I don't think it's the worst in Detroit history. I think the 0-16 Lions, that was really rough to watch growing up. Speaking of, I'm wearing the shirt. I don't think I think it's the worst Detroit Pistons team that's ever stepped on a court.
Oh yeah, no, statistically it is.
Statistically, you can't even argue it. They are the worst. But I think my 0-16 Lions were more of a letdown than this Pistons team.
See, even though they were 0-16, they didn't win a single game. But dude, they did go 4-0 in the preseason. But
Stop it.
It means something, okay?
To who?
To me.
Okay, fair enough.
But those Lions teams, they were also in a lot of these games.
So, and the Pistons weren't. How many? We got to look up a stat. How many games that they lost that were by 5 or less points?
Yeah, I don't think it's very. I'll pull up I don't think it's very much for the Detroit Pistons.
Well, I mean, the one game that we lost to the Knicks, where Monty finally decided to go to a press conference and defend his players, that was one of them, and that was one. But the fact that there's all these teams that I'm looking at the list right now, man, it's insane that you get swept by everybody like this, and
it's so bad.
It's so bad, man. And we're out here just trying to be so positive with this group of players because growing up, diehard Red Wings, Pistons, Lions, like loved them all. I watched all the games when I possibly could. And we were so luxurious having success in younger years with the Pistons and with the Red Wings. And now we're just kind of going through it. And we're hoping for that rebuild. But statistically, this is the worst Pistons team that I've ever watched. And it's really tough to turn on the channel because most of the time, if I do turn it on, I don't have it on for long, but I'll check the ESPN box score, and we're down usually by 25 or 20 points every time. So I'm usually pretty happy that I turned it off.
Yeah, but 28-game losing streak.
That's
terrible. That's 0-16 is bad, but a 28-game losing streak where you have the highest paid coach on your bench, you have multiple lottery pick players, including a former number 1 overall, and you couldn't catch fire one game. Instead, you go, and it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around. It just, especially when you start the season off 2-1. I don't know. It's
so you are saying the Pistons are the worst.
I am saying because
all right.
I think collectively on their roster, they had more talent than the 0-16 Lions did.
I would agree with that. I think that was John Kitna.
It was John Kitna, and I think Dan Orlovsky was on that team too.
Yeah, he was running backwards out of bounds.
He did. He did run out of bounds.
Really famous commentator, which is great.
He also farted on live TV.
He did fart on Pat McAfee show, which was great, and we have not done that yet, so that's awesome.
All been silent.
Oh, yeah, windshield wipers. Yeah, okay.
Well, I guess they did have Calvin Johnson on that team, but I mean, is Calvin Johnson really?
This is why I say this. This is why I say it's the Lions. Football and basketball, I think, are way different with preparation. You have a whole week to prepare for a football team. With basketball, you got back-to-backs. You got one day off to go into another game. The transition, I think, is a little bit harder for NBA players. So that's where I give them, I don't want to say I give them leeway on it because it still sucks. But that's why I say the Lions are the worst. Because you can't tell me in 16 games you can't prep for one team to beat. Not one. You play in your division twice a year. And you can't give me one win. That's why I say it's the Lions. But the Pistons, I mean, they're right next to that.
I get what you're saying. I really do. But this Lions team, yeah, I recognize the names because I watched the games. But dude, they didn't have a lot of talent on the team compared to the Pistons.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I think it's, in my opinion, it's the Pistons.
It's bad that we have to talk about it.
I mean, I think it's worth bringing up.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think it's worth it. But major changes are coming for the Detroit Pistons. An article written by James Edwards, he highlighted the failures of Monty Williams, but he also pointed out that the roster pretty much remained the same from a 17-win team. So I guess my first question to you is, who do you blame more for the failures, Troy Weaver or Monty Williams, for this season?
I don't think you can really hit Monty as much as I want to blame him. I really don't think you can hit him with everything, like the whole kitchen sink. I don't think it's all his fault. I really don't think we talk about and complain about roster rotation and how we think it's just he's putting out lineups that we think are unsuccessful, and he's taking out starters at part of the game that you cannot be losing momentum in. Like it's something that a Pistons fan that has watched Detroit basketball for a long period of time, something that we notice every game of what he's doing as a coach. And plus two, not only his rotations are poor, but it doesn't seem like he's giving any energy to anybody. It's like, dude, you're paying me $136 million. I'm going to be screaming every game just because I can. Like, I think he needs to show a little bit more effort. So, but I don't think it's all on him. I don't think it's all on him. It's been past 2 years. You said how many games have we won or lost in 2 years? 100 something?
131.
Monty wasn't last year.
Yeah.
So you can't blame him for last year. So I feel like you have to blame Weaver. Like you can't blame Monty for X amount of losses from 2022 to 2023 season because he wasn't even here. So I think if you're going to point any fingers, more than half the blame's at Troy.
So here's a question, and it might be a dumb question, But do you think at any point during the regular season, Monty Williams said to himself, "This roster is a disaster. I'm going to coach in a way that shows Troy Weaver and Tom Gores that this is a bad roster. Like, I'm going to fail on purpose, essentially." Do you ever think that might have crossed his mind as a coach?
It could have. I don't see the success rate of that, of trying to point fingers and show that it's not his problem. But I'll rally back to him just being there for 1 year. Like, I don't think there's a whole lot you can do in this, like, the system that they had in place already for him to actually motivate these guys to adapt to the culture that he wanted to implement. And I think you give him a little bit more time to figure out what he wants to do, and that comes from Weaver giving a little bit more trust to Monty to be able to make the decisions that he wants to make.
Okay, so we know changes are coming. This has been talked about, and we talked about it last week where neither of us are really in agreement with adding another cook to the kitchen because we heard a report, again by James Edwards, that the Pistons were looking to add a president of basketball operations. So it looks like it's going to happen in the front office. Do you think that Troy Weaver will be back next season? Do you think he'll be allowed to make moves this offseason, or do you think he'll be the guy cut going into the offseason?
We all want him cut.
We do.
We all do. And Tom Gores needs to kind of understand that as a fan base, it's obvious that we're kind of downward spiraling right now. Like, it's rough for us to kind of want to invest money and time into this team, especially when, how long has Weaver been there?
I want to say this is going to be his fourth year.
It'll be fourth or fifth year. So are you going to give us another one of it? Because that's kind of where we're going. Like, it's a system that change, I think, is important. If you are like always not unsuccessful at doing something, I feel like it's kind of a thing that you need to move on from it and adapt to something different. Look at what other teams are doing with their GMs and their ownership, and kind of move along that way. With Weaver arguing with fans in the crowd and just not really, and honestly, even when he was arguing with that fan and that clip came out, he looked down bad. Like, that man he looked like he just wasn't having it anymore, man. And if you're out there arguing with a fan, that's also really rough, getting him thrown out of the game. I mean, he was one of only 30 people there, so that's money in the concessions for you. Like, he's going to get a Little Caesars pizza. That's $20. You just lost $20. So I don't like Weaver in this situation. I haven't liked him the last 2 years. His moves and his draft picks have been mediocre. I think you move on from it, but also as Tom Gores, and you're going to move on from Weaver, if you're going to do this, you really kind of need to talk to Monty Williams and figure out what Monty wants to do.
You know, I get the feeling that Troy Weaver is a grifter. And he's a fraud. He doesn't really know his job that well. And I get so tired of Pistons fans saying, but look at the talent he acquired. I don't think I think I could have made the pick of Cade Cunningham at number 1. I think if Jaden Ivey had fell to me at number 5, it would be a toss-up between him and Benedict Mathurin. But, like, I would probably make the same mistake that Troy Weaver did, even though there was a part of me that was like, yeah, but Benedict Mathurin, it does make sense next to Cade. I feel like there's a lot of guys that could have made the same decisions, maybe even made, and I'm just talking strictly fans, guys that, like us, that host a podcast and talk about the Pistons. I feel like we could have made a lot of the same decisions as Troy Weaver, and that's why I feel like he's a grifter. Like, the story about him, like, yeah, he kind of helped Carmelo Anthony. He kind of helped Syracuse recruit Carmelo Anthony. Dude, he was one of the best players in the country at the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure Syracuse knew about him, and then
Carmelo should have been a Piston.
We'll talk about that at some other point, but
all right, sorry,
don't do that right now. Don't do that. There's a better name than Carmelo that should have been drafted at number 2, and I've told this to Ben Wallace. But what, man? You made me lose my train of thought. Oh, like, if you even go back to like the Russell Westbrook draft, there's those reports where, like, man, Troy Weaver, he was saying, like, my job's on the line. You need to draft him at number 4. I would have to go and look back, but I don't think there were many mock drafts that didn't have Russell Westbrook that high. Like I think he was kind of already known as like, yeah, we got you got to get this guy if you have a position to draft him. So basically what I'm getting at is I think Troy Weaver's a fraud. And I think he was given a lot of credit for obvious moves. And it's cost the Pistons dearly. It really has.
So you think even like if you took just a regular Joe and threw him in his seat, we'd still be in the same position we're at right now? Like the cards have not really fallen in our favor to be successful when it comes to drafting players?
I think a majority of Pistons fans would if we were in the same seat as Troy Weaver, and I'm just talking strictly drafting, we would be in a similar situation. I think most of us would do this the level of job Troy Weaver has done as like acquiring talent through the draft. Now, like I don't think a lot of us understand the contracts and how to bring guys in, but I think in terms of drafting, a lot of us would have made the exact same decisions. I do think there are a few that would have made better decisions than Troy Weaver, and that's a really small amount. But that's what I'm kind of getting at. Like I just think Troy Weaver's done such a bad job, and just some of the picks were so obvious. Anybody could have made those picks.
Yeah.
That's where I'm getting at it.
Yeah.
So I have one final question for this topic. And do you think one of the major moves could be the Pistons trading one of the core four?
I think it's gonna be. I think
that's one of the major moves, too.
I think Monty he hasn't expressed it to the media, but I think he's expressed it through his coaching. I think he's kind of showed how he wants to maneuver going forward with this team. And we've already kind of talked about Jaden Ivey not really being someone that's been beloved by that staff, at least like he's been cold shouldered. Like I think he's on the first to be moved. So I think I think a four will be moved and transitioned after the draft. I don't think it'll be before the draft, but I think with this draft, depending on who we take at whatever 1 through 5 that we get, I think that'll tell us a lot of what we're going to be doing in the offseason, of what they're trying to focus, whether it's guard play or whether it's a big.
Yeah, other than a couple of games, like he had a 31-point game against Memphis. That was a G League team. He had 25 points against Philadelphia. And other than that, Jaden Ivey, he kind of had a bad stretch of games towards the end of the season. Yeah, I hated that. I always feel like I'm always picking on Jaden Ivey, but like I can't help it. I can't help it. I feel so bad, but I just can't help it.
I don't think he's a bad player. Like I think a lot of the intangibles that he has, and not even just him, anybody coming out of the draft, your success rate is based off what the situation you get placed in. Like I think that is like 50% of where you're set and how you're coached and who you're surrounded by in the NBA than it is for really what your skill set is. Because if you're going into the draft, you're obviously good enough to get picked. Like if you're invited to the combine, like you're a good player. These guys aren't bad players. They're all NBA players when they get picked. So they have the assets to be on a team. And maybe Jaden Ivey you got picked to the wrong team. And he had a bad start in Detroit. Like Bruce Brown wasn't great in Detroit. He went and just won a championship in Denver. And he had a different role as a 6th man, 7th man off the bench. And he was super successful. And then he chased a bag and now he's not on a good team anymore. Like, so he got what he wanted. Yep. And he kind of and him leaving and kind of exposing the Pistons like that he wasn't a good system fit for them, going and winning a championship kind of proves that even if he's a mid-tier player, he can still go be successful for some other team.
Do you know why Bruce Brown got traded?
Enlighten me.
So the story is, and he said this on a podcast, I think it was Theo Pinson's podcast, and it was he got traded because he went home to celebrate his birthday with his family. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the story.
How does that make any sense?
Dude, I have no idea.
You're not allowed to love other people. We're doing this.
He also said there's something about like guys making their beds. That's what he looks for in draft. It's so weird.
Can we go back to the Weaver thing and how he's just not good at his job? If this is all true,
that's what I'm saying.
This is not it. Like, If you don't stir your chocolate milk more than 7 times, it sucks and you're not drafted. Like, what are you saying, dude? Like, oh my lord. I
I
didn't
have
know any of
no
that was
idea, dude.
true, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, the bad thing is true, and I'm pretty sure it was Bruce Brown's birthday. But anyways, Tom Gores is looking for a new leader. What do we want in a leader, though? I was gonna joke. I was gonna make a joke and be like, "Well, physically, what do we want? Like a strong beard, dude, a nice comb over haircut, or like, dude, a nice tight lineup, eyebrows that aren't bushy, looking like curtains on their face, something like that." But on a more serious note, what do we want in a new leader? Basically, like, what do we want in a new GM? So what I'm looking for is I want someone with a proven track record when it comes to drafting and assembling a roster, and I want to see that those rosters and those draft picks have produced winning seasons. I don't want another guy coming in where they're like, they were in the draft room, he said, if this guy doesn't turn out, you can fire me. I don't want that. I want a proven track record, a guy that has found talent late in the first round and in the second round, guys that have gotten multiple contracts where, basically based out of their draft spots. That's what I want to see from the new leader. I want to see a guy that knows how to build a team. That's what I want to see. And I want to know if hopefully they have good asset management. I'm so tired of Troy Weaver making these trades like we just signed Marvin Bagley, but now we're going to trade him and 2 second round picks. And then the guys that we're bringing back, we're just going to cut. I don't want to see that anymore.
Uh, accountability is the only thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
all
that's
I'm going
good.
to say because obviously we all know that this is just a dumpster fire of hell that we're all just watching it burn to the ground. I want a GM that's going to take responsibility for his actions. You go and you trade somebody, you make a mistake, something happens. Who cares what it is? Be able to own up to it, to a fan base or to your team. And and I want a little bit of loyalty. I want someone that wants to be there. I want someone that enjoys being around this team because he honestly doesn't look like he gives a shit. And it's really hard to be a GM and not care about your team. Like, I think Sheila
Mm.
Ford's gone to more Pistons games than Weaver has. Like, I don't understand. Like, you see Sheila on courtside all the time, and I don't. And Weaver's up 20 rows up having a drink and in sweats or khakis and a polo that doesn't fit him. Like, he's not a good representation for this franchise, and he's constantly just dumping more oil on our grease fire, and we can't put it out. Like as much as Gores maybe behind the scenes is really trying to do something with this, maybe Weaver's the guy that's no, this isn't it. No, this isn't it. No, we're not doing that. Maybe you bring someone in with a beard. Maybe that'll do something. I don't care what he looks like. He can look like Mike Wazowski. Let's win some damn games. We're not winning any games, and until we get that type of man in charge that's going to actually run stuff, hold himself accountable, hold the players accountable, the coach accountable, all the assistant coaches, and put it all together, then we'll have something. But right now, it's not going to happen.
I want a Brad Holmes type in at that
Brad
GM
Holmes
spot.
is amazing.
Yeah.
He cares, man. He cares. After games, he's in the locker room with the teams. Like he cares about the success rate of this team, and that should be a part of a contract as a GM. Do you not? If I own the Pistons, bro, I'd be at Little Caesars Arena when they're not even playing because I want to be there. Like I want to go to practices. I want to see how everyone. Cade gets injured. I want to know daily updates on how he's doing. I want to know what's going on. I want to be involved. I want to be a part of this. Like it's not a winning culture. We're in a losing culture, and it starts from the top.
Yeah, it does, but that's more of a Tom Gores thing, like, because since he owns the Pistons, like, he's never at the games, like, he might be at the home opener, and then you might see him towards the end of the season. He's not there at all. Troy Weaver, I mean, like, he is at the games, but I kinda agree with you where, like, I don't wanna really call out a guy for not being a good representation because it is a miserable job, but he really has made it more miserable than it needed to be. I will say one thing about him, though, he has cleared the books where they do have $60 million, but they had quite a bit of money last year in cap space, and they didn't do anything with it, and instead they took on Joe Harris's contract and helped the Nets out where they could re-sign Cam Johnson, and you kinda wonder why, and then it seems like he helped out the Knicks. I forget what the trade was, but they were able to bring in Jalen Brunson, I think, because of a move he made. He's just a weird GM. And I don't know if like I don't even know if he knew what kind of moves he was really making. It kind of seems like he was just taken advantage of by other GMs. And I don't want that from the next guy.
So, all right. So we had this conversation off the stream. So is his big splash for his last year drafting Bronny James at number 1 just to bring in LeBron, just to have LeBron and Bronny on the team for a one go around? Is that what we're gonna do here?
I don't think he is in a position where he would even dare try something like that.
If you're gonna go out with a bang. Like honestly, like
I think if you were, man, this sounds so crazy, but if you were on track to like make the playoffs, like you had success the first few years under his tenure, you're like, yeah, like you could see the building blocks, the foundation's there. He's put this team on the right track. Then I would say, dude, just take a stab at drafting Bronny James to bring LeBron James in. But like when you've lost 131 games in 2 years and you're on a 28 game losing streak, no, dude, you don't get that right to do something like that. You do not get that right. That's for GMs that have earned it.
Yeah, but you already know that's what's going to happen. Wherever he goes, his dad's going to try to pull some type of string to be able to play with him in the league for at least 1 year. Like he's got one more back. Which, granted, I'm that's really cool to be able to say that existed. But that's not a splash that I would want them to do at all. I just thought it'd be a funny topic of conversation.
It would be, but it made me start thinking I was getting kind of heated about it. But wouldn't you do the same thing for your kids, though, if you were LeBron James?
Of course. Why would I not?
Yeah, okay.
I would try. I would try, but you probably won't succeed because someone's going to pick the kid and not sign him. Like, that's what's going to happen. Just out of spite, because you already know some GMs out there that have a lot of hatred towards certain people aren't going to make that move. Just like, no, all right, I'm going to play him.
If he gets drafted in the first round, would it be like comparable to Tim Tebow being drafted in the first round?
I don't think he should be drafted at all. I think he should be I think he maybe could be signed on a 10-day contract. I think he should go to the G League. I don't think he could be a bad player, but with his health, let alone not being really what he was supposed to be going to USC, I don't really even think he should be drafted in this at all.
If I was in Bronny James' ear, I would tell him, dude, test the draft waters. But if it's not what you want, go back to college, but transfer from USC to like a mid-major, maybe Western Michigan University or something like that, where you can be the guy where other teams game plan for you, where they're like, we got to stop Bronny. I think you learn the most when you're the best player on the team, when you're forced in that position to make the right decisions, where you're forced to adjust your game based on how the defense is playing you. And I feel like he hasn't really been challenged in his career because he was on some pretty stacked high school and AAU teams. And I feel like that really hurt his growth as a basketball player, playing with so many good players. I feel like when you're in his position, you have to be the best player on the team. And you have to be forced to make adjustments when the defense is just trying to game plan for you each and every game.
Yeah. But if he does get drafted and he is playing with his dad, he has more job security than Giannis's brother out in Milwaukee.
Come on, say his name.
I can't say it. I'm going to call him Thanos. I can't pronounce it, and I'm not going to do it. But this man, I don't know if you saw the clip of this dude getting the 8-second violation, dribbling the ball up the court.
I've seen it all.
Oh man, I've lost it. But wherever Bronny goes, if he's with his dad, he's gonna stay on a roster. He's just gonna be another guy on the roster that is almost like a waste of cap space to keep him out.
Oh, the thing is, everybody's gonna be kissing his ass until his dad retires.
Oh, 100%.
Unless he just really balls out in the NBA, but we'll see.
Imagine he's dropping 25 points a game, out of nowhere for the Lakers. Man,
I would love it.
I'm never gonna want not success for somebody going into the league. I would love for him to be and carry on a legacy. That'd be really cool. I don't think it's going to be him. I think Bryce is a lot better than Bronny is. I think Bryce is very, very good. And his size is a lot better than Bronny's is. But I would like to see both of them play together in the league. That'd be really cool. That'd be two brothers that actually might be on the court, not like Giannis. So the Antetokounmpo brothers. So his brother's like basically just a security guard, dude. Anytime he gets fouled hard, he's ready to run under the floor for no reason. It's like, dude, you're not fighting people at this. This is not what we're doing here.
I do think there's a chance that Bronny's game is better in the NBA, but I want to go back to something you said. You would, let's just say you're playing against someone, they beat you in like this, because you played against Monte Morris. There wasn't a small part of you where you were like, dude, I know you're going to go real far with this, but I hope your career sucks. There wasn't a part of you that said that?
Man, dude, when I had to guard Monte, granted, that was a horrible decision. Thanks, Randy Small. I was not thrilled about that one bit because I'll tell you what, that was in high school back in 2012. That kid was one of the fastest kids I've ever seen on a basketball court. And he did not even burn me with his shots. I think he had 15 assists in the semifinal game versus us, which was incredible.
Yeah.
But no, I never wished bad upon him. He already committed to Iowa State when I got to play him in 2012. I think he actually won Mr. Basketball of Michigan, I think, that year as well.
I think
But
you did too.
but I didn't wish anything bad on him. He was actually a really cool dude. I asked him politely not to cross me up, and he just laughed about it. And then I was like, I'm serious. Like, please don't do that. Like, you're up 20 points. Like, if you make me fall, I'm not gonna be one of your highlight reel clips. Like, it's not gonna be cool. So like, but no, he was actually really cool when I talked to him. But I never wished bad upon his career. Like
I'm not saying
I thought
health wise.
no.
Yeah.
I didn't. But the way that he played, though, too, and how good his team was, I knew he was going to be successful. And then he went on to be the leading assist to turnover ratio, I think, in Iowa State history as a guard, which was incredible. And then he carried that on to the NBA, actually, where he had a pretty decent career that was suffered by injuries.
Well, I mean, he's still out with Minnesota right now.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
He averaged, I think, like 0.8 for his career. But anyways, let's just move on. Let's look over the Pistons roster. And let's just go down and take a guess on who we think will be back next season. So I'm going to pull the roster up for you. I don't even think you know all of these names. I'm actually willing to bet you don't know all of these names. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay. Buddy Boeheim, do you think he'll be back next year? Okay. Troy Brown Jr.
Didn't we just pick him up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he makes the roster next year.
He's on a friendly contract where it is guaranteed, but it's only guaranteed up to a certain point. So if he's cut at this one date, then the contracts come off the book. Cade Cunningham, he'll be on the team. You'll need to answer that. Jalen Duren, the first tricky one. Do you think he'll still be on the roster next year?
Are we talking about after draft, before draft? We're talking about right now, just of the roster as is.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's whatever you want to throw into where you're like, if the Pistons get the number 1 overall pick, I see them drafting Alex Sarr and I see them trading Jalen Duren. If that's the angle you want to go with, you can.
I think he stays.
Okay. Tossin Iwoma.
No, he'd be a G League player.
He is a G League player right now. He's on a 10-day.
Yep.
Malachi Flynn, do you think he'll be back? He had a 50-point game.
Doesn't mean anything. We still lost. It's just another loss. No, I don't think he remains on the roster.
Okay. Simone Fontecchio.
He
is a restricted free agent. I think he'll be back too. Evan Fournier.
I think Fournier will be a good trade piece next year for maybe a team that's more willing to compete for something bigger than what we have.
Because I think he's on a team option, so they can pick it up and it'll be like 18, 19 million, which on 1 year, some teams might take it. Taj Gibson, do you think he'll be back as a player or a coach?
I hope neither.
Okay, dude. Quentin Grimes.
I think he remains on the roster.
Okay, good. I like him a lot. Jaden Ivey.
No.
Okay. Ooh. I agree with you on that one too. I don't know why I said
it's not that I don't want him. It's what I think they're gonna do with the roster. I would love to keep him. I really like watching him play. But with the way that they're moving, I think he's going to transition somewhere else, and I think we might get draft picks out of him.
Would you rather watch Jaden Ivey play really well next year, but the Pistons still lose less than 20? The Pistons win less than 20 games, or trade Jaden Ivey and they win 25.
I'd rather right now it's wins, baby.
Okay.
Yeah. If we keep Jaden Ivey, but we only lose 26 in a row instead of 28. No, let's get rid of him.
But there are some fans out there that would be totally fine with keeping Jaden Ivey and watching him develop, even if it meant the Pistons were going through another losing. I mean, they'd go through another losing season if they wasn't on the roster. But like,
Pass.
if you could tell me, like, yeah,
I think we can get something out of him.
What about Metu? And the reason I'm saying his name because I have left a couple players off, and I will leave a couple players off on this because I don't think some of them are coming back. But I shout out to my boy Cameron. He always loves to drop questions to me on X, and he had said he would rather the Pistons stop going with reclamation projects and bring veterans like Metu back. So, what do you think about Metu?
I wouldn't be upset if they kept him.
Okay.
That's not something that I think would be a really negative impact on the team.
He has like a 5th or 6th big. I could see that.
Yeah.
Jared Roden. Now he's on a 2-way deal. He does play with the Motor City Cruise, but he had a little cup of coffee with the Pistons.
I think he stays in a Piston organization, but he's not going to be on the roster. I think he'll stay in the G League and we'll use him. I think he's a great player to use just to cover injuries. I think he's a good call up for a 10-day just whenever they need him. And he does play well.
Marcus Sasser.
Yes.
Okay. Isaiah Stewart.
I want to say no, but yes.
Okay. Asar Thompson. That's a pretty easy one.
He's staying.
Stanley Amude. This is one of my favorite players.
I would love Amude to stay.
Yep, same.
I would love to. Yep.
Kind of a controversial name we're gonna say right now. It's James Wiseman.
God.
Okay.
He's out. He's gonna. I think he is a very good garbage minute player for us. I would like to keep him. I would like to keep him as a backup big because if we're gonna draft guard coming up here pretty soon, I think he is a good guy to come and fill in for Duren for a couple minutes if Duren can stay out of foul trouble. But I think they're gonna move on with him.
So you would rather have James Wiseman be the backup versus them finding someone else in free agency?
It depends on the availability, but from what James Wiseman has showed me, he hasn't played that horrible. I mean, he's
been up and down.
He's been very up and down, but I think he just the last game didn't he have like a 23-17 game versus San Antonio?
If he did that against San Antonio, that's crazy.
But when Wembanyama Mama was not playing,
Oh, dude.
but the thing that you shared with was it Rashid?
Oh, he did have 21 points.
Wama,
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah,
he called him. I lost him, man. It's like, yeah. But
you're
no,
right.
He had
21 and 17. 21 and 17. Wow.
See, I know stuff too. But I like his fill-in minutes. I really do because he's kind of established himself and he can play with other bigs. So I do like him on the roster. They did bring him in this year last year from Golden State.
Brought him in last year.
Last year from Golden State. I think Golden State didn't give him an opportunity. I like James Wiseman. He is still pretty young, but I think they do move on with James Wiseman.
Okay. I think they move on too. So you wanted to bring in the play-in tournament, right?
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit.
You're the one that wrote it down.
I mean, yeah, like
so
I want to talk about your predictions for this because I'm really playoff basketball is the best part of it because I feel like beginning regular season to mid-season and even in this mid-season tournament, which I think is a horrible idea because they already all have millions of dollars. So why do we need to play for another $1 million? Like, I think that's iffy. Like, it's cool to bring on the competitive scene. I think the courts all look like shit. I don't think they look good. The Detroit Pistons court was horrendous. Like, I think they need to make the courts back to normal courts. But for the play-in tournament, Tuesday, you got the Lakers versus Pelicans, Warriors versus Kings, and then Wednesday is Heat versus Sixers, and then the Hawks versus the Bulls. Now, out of these teams that are playing, I want to ask you a question. Out of all of these teams, who do you think will make the deepest run?
Ooh. Okay, I'm going to do by elimination.
Okay.
Bulls, not making a run.
Okay.
Hawks, not making a run. 76ers, didn't they just lose Joel Embiid again, though?
He's back. I think he's back for the playoffs.
I thought he got hurt again, though.
I don't think he got hurt again. If he did, because they were my pick. to run because I think Embiid is a monster.
It says on Yahoo 7 hours ago, Joel Embiid reportedly expected to be ready for postseason. Because I know he came back. But
Yep.
anyways, I think the Heat make a deep run out of the Eastern Conference again.
Okay.
They're a team that I'm never going to count out.
Okay.
And for the Western Conference, I want to say the Pelicans because I love the Pelicans. And I love the way Zion's been playing. He's been super motivated.
Yep.
Brandon Ingram's coming back. He's seriously one of my favorite players in the league. And he's one of those guys I hope the Pistons target in the offseason. Like if the Pelicans bounced out of the playoffs early, I could see them splitting Zion and Brandon Ingram up. And I'd love the Pistons to pounce on Brandon Ingram. But
You're gonna count out the Lakers and the Warriors. You're gonna
no,
just
it comes down to the Warriors and the Kings for me to
okay.
go on a deep playoff run.
Okay.
And when I say deep playoff run, I'm just saying second round. I don't see any of these teams
No,
going to the Western Conference
I don't
Finals.
think so either. I think with a healthy Joel Embiid, I think they could possibly make it to the Eastern, just because I think the East isn't super strong. I think they could make a run. I think the Western Conference is daddy of the NBA right now. So I think it's going to be a lot harder for anybody in the play-in for them. I really do like Sacramento. I'm a big De'Aaron Fox fan. Like I love watching that kid play. He is very, very good. I think they do beat the Warriors. I think I think it's a close game, but I'll take Sacramento. I'll take Sacramento in that probably 9 times out of 10.
Okay.
I think the Warriors, they just don't have it right now, man. They're not clicking at a good time. They usually this is when Golden State just picks up, man. Curry's hot going right into the ends of playoff time, and he hasn't really been shooting incredible. I think he had one game that he was like 6 for 6, but he's kind of fallen off and he's been really wishy-washy. So I'll take the Kings. I think they're more physical than the Warriors. I would love for the Pelicans to beat the Lakers. I'll be on that train for you. I think
Yeah.
they are more hungry to win a game than the Lakers are at this moment in time. So
I
I
feel
think
like
that's saying,
though I feel like though with the Lakers, there's going to be a lot of foul calls in their favor.
oh, well, of course,
It's going to suck
Anthony
too.
Davis is going to take at least 13 to 14 free throws in that game. Yeah, and I would agree with you on the Heat. I would agree with you, but I think Tyler Hero is not the guy.
Okay.
I think that they played better without him. They made it to a championship game without him.
This is true.
I think you give Jimmy Butler more of the opportunity to run an offense, I think they're a better team. And I love Bam Adebayo. I really do. I think he
Same.
is an anchor. Like Bam, that's what I wished Duran was going to be, was a Bam Adebayo, which would have been incredible, but that did not happen. So like out of the teams in the East, I would love to. I think the Bulls and Hawks is going to be a horrible game. I think it's just going to be a lot of three shooting. I think Murray takes over in that game. I think the Hawks do beat the Bulls, but I think the Hawks get swept in their first game series. But I would like the Sixers and the Heat matchup is actually going to be a really good game.
That's going to be a fun one.
Yep.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, like I said, Heat out of the East, I could see them making. And I think out of all the teams we talked about, I think they could seriously make the deepest run. I believe in playoff Heat basketball.
Yeah.
When the playoffs come around, there's just something different about them.
Spoelstra does great. He doesn't get enough credit. I think he really is a great postseason coach, and he doesn't really get the credit that he deserves with that title that he has.
True. Well, he was named one of the 15 greatest coaches, so they did recognize him for that. But I still feel like he slept on a little bit.
Yeah. Now that's who the Pistons need to go get. We'll get Eric Spoelstra.
Crazy.
They would never give him up. Ever.
They would never do it.
He'll retire in Miami. So,
which he should.
But we're both agreed upon, other than obviously the play-in tournament, but just all the teams overall that are going to be in the playoffs. I think we're both that I would bet my mortgage that Denver is going to win it again. I think they repeat. I think they are the all-around, like one of the greatest teams that has been built in a very long time, with how everybody plays within each other. And Jokic is just Jokic. Just give him the MVP every year, because it's clear that he's the best player in the league right now. Like it's and especially with Joel being hurt the whole season, like I was hoping that Tatum was going to make a run, but Jokic just carries this thing on his back and runs away with it every year to me.
And he's loved, but like if you look at the advanced numbers too, they they show a lot of love to Nikola Jokic, and man, he's just so good all around. Like even just the eye test when you watch him, you're like, damn, this dude's great. But then you look at the advanced numbers, they're great as well too. Thank you guys for listening to the 3 Championship Drive podcast. Do us a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating. But more importantly, tell a Pistons fan